please introduce yourself and what your job role is for people that don't know who you are.
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Cal Henderson. I'm co-founder and CTO of Slack, where I run our engineering organization.
Okay, so we've just been having a really nice discussion about the future of work and how Slack is enabling the digital HQ, which has been really amazing. What kind of thing do you think? So I'm an apprentice, I'm going to be coming in, I've got the experience with the phones, I can pick something like that up straight away and be able to use it. What do you think a way of helping other generations or people that aren't as tech savvy would be to get them onto Slack?
Yeah, I think it's a really important question because I think tools like Slack, when they're adopted in the workplace, can only really be successful if everybody uses them. But I think the key to that is probably kind of, as you say, the messaging with smartphones of increasingly, people like of my parents' generation are sending me WhatsApp messages, not calling me on the phone anymore. And it's that familiarity with apps in the consumer space that more and more people are becoming familiar with, of taking that same experience and moving that over to the workplace. And I think that if you go back 20 years, the kind of cutting edge of technology was technologies used in the workplace. Partially because that's where the money was in developing software. But then we had this kind of revolution, if you like, in consumer technology around the mid-2000s with the rise of the social network. Social network, and then 5-10 years later, the smartphone, of the real advances in technology, especially around user experience, happened in the consumer apps. And people are now carrying the computer around with them every day, and there's been this. If you look at software that you used 20 years ago in the workplace versus software that you use now, it's so much easier to use software now. And all of that has been driven by the kind of iterations and experiments in the consumer space of because the value of making things easier to use on the consumer side is so high, because you get better engagement, you make more ad money, that there's been this massive investment in it. And if you look at how easy it is to say, use a phone app now versus using Facebook when it first came out, it's so much easier to get started now. And also because they're targeting a much more mass market, that we take a lot of prompts in the design of our products and the experience from that consumer side, and think about, the people aren't, there's this kind of inventor's dilemma when you build software and building tools, of imagining that people really care about the things that you build, that they want to become experts, they want to understand the kind of data model of your application, understand how everything fits together. People just don't care. They just want to get their task done. So the more that you can take that needing to be an expert out of it and bring that kind of like beginner's mind to each interaction that you have in your software, the more important. User research is huge here. It's incredibly painful to watch anybody use software that you've made because it never works like you expect. They don't get it. You're like, it's the giant button, press the giant button, and they just can't see it. And it's humbling, but also really important that making software for lots of people to use is incredibly difficult, and it's really important. If more and more people can't use it, then it's not going to be effective.
I think as a software developer myself, I think sometimes we struggle to make the software easy for the business user because the way we sometimes think isn't the same as the way a business user would think.
I think that's absolutely true, and it's because I care deeply about the products that we make, but also I know so much about them. At Slack, we've been building it for almost 10 years, so we are the most at Slack. We're the most expert users on using Slack, and I think it's easy to lose sight of that. And remember that most people are just using it for the first time, and maybe they've had a bad day when they first come to Slack, like they were late to work, they had a fight with their spouse, and they missed the bus, and they get to work, and their manager's mad at them, and they have this meeting to prepare for, and they're working on a deck, and now they have to use this stupid new tool that their company mandated. That's the way that we have to think about the user coming to it for the first time. They're trying to get something done. They don't really care about the piece of software that you make. They care about the thing that they're trying to get done, and you're just in the way of that. And the more that you can get out of the way and help them achieve what it is they're trying to do, and that's really about understanding what they're trying to, what people are trying to achieve in the workplace, which is to get their work done.
So it'd be interesting to hear how you sort of got involved with that, even got involved with software development. That'd be really interesting because a lot of my network would probably be interested in that.
Yeah, so when I was really little, I wanted to be an astronaut because I was a kid. Cool. But then I was colorblind, so you can't be a pilot, can't be an astronaut if you're colorblind. So
at least you've got good UX.
So that,
Probably.
well, hopefully,
For
yeah.
the colours, anyway.
So that was the end of that dream. But then luckily, when I was, I think, 6, we got a computer in my house at the time when it was weird to have a computer. And at the time came with BASIC built in, the programming language. And at that point I was like, all right, now I know what I want to do. I want to make software, yes. And I love making stuff. And I think as I kind of grew up in an era before the mass web, and I made software for myself, and then the web came around in the kind of mid to late 90s for me, and I realized I could make software and 10 people could see it, and this was a revelation. I was like, all right, I want to work in making software on the web. And then incredibly luckily for me, now there's millions of people or billions of people, and I can just make software that hundreds of millions of people use every day, and that's just kind of an incredible thing to be able to do. And I love making stuff, and that's how I got into it.
It's a bit surreal. You'd be walking down the street, and actually the people that are walking past you probably use the software that you've made.
Honestly, that is the most surreal thing to me still, is I go into a coffee shop in San Francisco where I live, and there'll be people there sitting at the tables using Slack, and I don't know them, I don't know what they do, I don't know what their business is, but they're using the thing I make.
That's really cool.
And sometimes using it in terrible ways. And I'm like, oh no, I just want to sit down and tell you about the way in which I think it should be used, but that is also a useful, humbling experience of it doesn't matter how good you think you make it, some people will not understand it, and there's always room for improvement. I think there's a lot of people aren't motivated by kind of shame and discouragement, but I really am. I love the things that I make, however good they get, could be so much better. There's so much room for upside and improvement, and I think that kind of constant improvement mindset is really important for making great products.
Yeah. So I'm 21. I'm going to graduate next year from university. What is something you would have liked to tell your 21-year-old self?
Well, I would have liked to tell my 21-year-old self that the internet is going to be really big, so stick with it, which was turned out to be useful advice. But I think it is certainly now, at that age, you're incredibly lucky that software engineering, the software that we build, has such a profound impact on society, on humanity, in the workplace and outside of the workplace, that you have such high leverage compared to kind of any other industry right now to have an effect on people's lives, and that's just incredibly lucky that both I find it really interesting, I love making software, and it has a huge impact, and also you can make a living doing it.
Yeah.
And it is only become a more valuable skill year over year for the last 20 years. So I think that's going to continue to be true for a while. And it's just such an exciting time to be a software engineer.
Definitely. Thank you so much for talking to me
Oh,
today.
you're
It's
welcome.
been really amazing. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
I hope you enjoy the rest of Dreamforce.
Yeah, you too.